I'm Conrold and welcome back to the final episode of the 2021 Oscar season for this year's old Oscar countdown. Ever since December, I've been breaking down what I think is going to get nominated, what I think is going to get win, and then once the nominations happened, I predicted what I think was going to win, and finally, we are here to give you my live reactions and thoughts after the award show and what this means for the future, as well as announcing a new series. So stay tuned, all that for the rest of the video. But at the top, I just want to jump into my thoughts on the telecast initially and sort of the fiasco and kind of a disaster that I thought the award show was. I thought it was a disappointing award show in the sense that it's probably the worst version I've seen in many years. On one hand, I was expecting a lot because it's Steven Soderbergh, who I'm a huge fan of, and I love his movies, so I was expecting something different and unique. But on the other hand, I recognize that, of course, not all the nominees could actually come to the Oscars, so some were in England and Australia and all across the world, so there was sort of a weirdness there, which was unfortunate, and the mass and the whole thing, so there was a little bit of a skepticism, but ultimately I think I was hugely disappointed by the award show and how they decided to do things, particularly the last 30 minutes to hour or so, as the award show sort of winded down, the sort of suspense and how they decided to do things just didn't work out, frankly. And the beginning was somewhat interesting in terms of the different aspect ratio, and I appreciated that they allowed the people to actually speak. I mean, sometimes the speeches were very long, and you could tell that there is a certain quality of maybe playing people off, that most of the time in the Oscars, maybe they do it too early, but then in some speeches that have gone on for 5 minutes, like, yeah, you're just rambling because you're nervous or whatnot, and you need someone to maybe guide you off and play you off in that sense. So the beginning was pretty typical. No host and whatnot, but we've seen that in the past years. It was very serious, sort of a let's get back to the movies, let's be safe, let's be sort of celebratory. We know this is a hard year, and that tone in the first beginning was maybe a little bit boring, but traditional and standard, and it seemed like that was the right choice in the sense that not too many funny jokes, and just sort of give the awards out and give the nominees a lot of love and respect. But then as the award show gone on, it went weirder and weirder, and I think when the Tyler Perry speech happened, that was like the peak of the night. It was like an amazing speech. It was great. He was so passionate. He only had 2 minutes, and he said it all concisely, and it was great. And then from there, the sort of award show went off the rails. The decision to have Best Picture before Best Lead Actor and Best Lead Actress was mind-numbingly confusing. Really even started before that with Glenn Close and the Oscar trivia and Guess the Song. They hadn't done any sort of funny bits awards all night, so I thought that, okay, they're going to be serious and thoughtful, and that's what they're going to be this year. But to have only one of these sort of funny Oscar bits that normally a host does was very strange, just to have one of them, and then to have it so awkward and painfully unfunny was another thing. The fact that they clearly sort of coached Glenn to talk about debut, and then she was dancing, and it was just so awkward and weird, and then they had to cut people off because they were swearing, and he didn't know if that was a part of it too. It was very strange, to say the least. And then further on, I liked it in some parts that they decided to go with Best Director. It was a little bit confusing, but earlier on in the night, but essentially wanted to sort of spread the awards, which I'm for the most part kind of fine with if something like Best Director goes. But the fact that Best Picture was the third award given out was so confusing to me, because that's usually the big surprise of the night. That's the big award of the night. There's a 90-year tradition of giving it out last. So to change that, so what happens is you go, oh, Nomadland won. All right, yes, I won, first time in a long time. It makes sense. I'm glad it did win. Maybe it's not my favorite of all the nominees, but I still really like the movie, and I am glad that it did win. That was probably the best scenario for it. And then Chloe Zhao says her piece, and then Frances McDormand, she doesn't think she's going to win Best Actress, so she says her piece. And then, oh wait, no, the Best Actress happens, which was one of the most exciting categories of the night going into it. And surprisingly, Frances McDormand does win for Nomadland, which was a little bit of a surprise. I don't know how many people had that. I think she was sort of like the third option for many people. Personally, she was my second option. It was her, Carey Mulligan, but I went with Frances McDormand, and that was my second option. And Francesca ultimately won, but it was weird because when she said her speech, it seemed like she just said it when Nomadland won Best Picture, so it was awkward, and she only lasted, it was a good speech in terms of what she was saying, but it only lasted a quick little bit of a minute because she started to already said that with her picture win, and just the fact that, this is a historic win. The fact that she's now in the likes of Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson and Katharine Hepburn as some of the highest, most awards given. She has now won, she has actually won 4 Oscars, but she has won 3 acting Oscars, which is a huge achievement. So just that normally they'd have like an announcer say that. I don't believe they said it this year, so it just happened and it was weird. It didn't seem important, even though it actually was. And then finally, the Best Lead Actor final award of the night was the most anticlimactic, poor decision they've ever had. Anthony Hopkins surprisingly won. It was a surprise of the night, but he didn't even show up at the Oscars. I understand that he's in the UK and it was in the middle of the night, so I don't blame him in that sense, and he delivered a terrific performance in The Father. But you can't structure an award show like that. That big sort of final reveal is that the guy didn't even show up and we're going to take it on his behalf. It was so anticlimactic. I remember when it was happening with Best Actress, you were thinking that, oh, okay, I don't like that they've done Best Picture before it, but you know what, they're going to end with Best Lead Actor. They're going to give it to Chadwick Boseman. It's going to be a nice ceremony, a nice memorial, great and all. And then it didn't happen. And then they went to Anthony Hopkins. And he didn't even show up, so it was super anticlimactic. So on one hand, it's like, yeah, I love that Anthony Hopkins performance. I probably would have voted for it, that or Riz Ahmed for Sound of Metal. But I still maybe would have voted for Chadwick Boseman just because this is the last time you could celebrate him. He was a terrific actor. Anthony Hopkins has already won an Oscar. So it was, just to have someone like Chadwick Boseman's widow show up just to lose to a guy who's not even there. It was so odd. It was so anticlimactic. You would think that they know beforehand, so they tell Anthony Hopkins, or they wouldn't do it in that format. They would just do the traditional format of Best Picture. Such a strange decision of how it was structured. The weird comedy bits. I also, there's also other things that I didn't like. The different camera angles, which you couldn't even get a head-on shot of them. Most of the time it was just a side profile, so you couldn't even see the person's face. The fact that there was no visuals, that they just said sort of trivia about people's first jobs. Usually I like to see the visuals of visual effects or sound and what they've done, or just like a big acting speech. I like that. So there's a lot of moments I was just, I want to be mad and angry and give a big reaction. I'm not that kind of person. I'm always trying to be that positive celebratory of movies, but it's so inevitable to hide my immense amount of disappointment. It's really immeasurable in the sense of so disappointed of how the award show turned out. Not necessarily with the picks. I was actually happy with the picks. I probably would have given it to Frances McDormand myself. I personally probably would have given it to Anthony Hopkins. I like that Nomadland won Picture, but just the way it was structured, the way they rolled things out, the weird bits that they did, this decision to do the show was really disappointing and unfortunate for the history that actually did occur and how people did or did not show up, which was ultimately unfortunate. But let's talk about what this means for the Oscars in coming years, because that's, I think, interesting to note. Of course, Best Picture goes to Nomadland, which was not surprising. It had a sort of artist-level style sweep in terms of winning everything, and then ultimately going on to win the Oscar. Oftentimes, we don't see the frontrunner winning, so that was interesting. Like I said, I was glad that I did predict this one because I haven't been as correct as of recent years because we've seen a lot of surprises, so it was interesting to see this one win. But I think it's also telling that the new Academy is not necessarily there's a certain type of Academy that, the Trial of Chicago 7 would be an old Academy winner, but with Nomadland winning, with Parasite winning last year, with Moonlight winning a few years ago, it is telling to see that these types of movies, these independent movies, these smaller movies, more intimate personal stories are performing extremely well, that the big war epic 1917 is not winning. It's a small Korean underdog that is, and I think that's telling of the types of movies that are going to win Best Picture, and Nomadland fits in that trend, and I think is continuing in that trend. So I'd expect a movie not like West Side Story to maybe win next year, but maybe something like A French Dispatch with someone like Wes Anderson, or something that, Stillwater maybe with Matt Damon, or something we haven't seen yet, rather than the big blockbuster. More of these smaller movies tend to actually win in Best Picture. Both, I think, the Best Actress race and the Best Actor race are also very telling in the sense that in this year, campaigning was not important. And now we've seen it even with the Glenn Close and Olivia Colman win, that And as a matter of fact, narratives aren't as important as we thought. We usually think, okay, Julianne Moore, she's never won before, she's going to win for Still Alice. That was true. But the fact that Glenn Close has never won before and then lost to Olivia Colman, the fact that Chadwick Boseman has passed away and Anthony Hopkins had already won one, okay, then therefore it's going to go with Chadwick Boseman. These narratives that we build up actually aren't true. Then as a matter of fact, they just, Academy members, the members keep on growing and the Academy gets bigger, more and more just vote for the performances that they like. That for so many people it was Anthony Hopkins should win, but Chadwick has just passed away, so he's going to win. That wasn't true in this case, and neither was Frances McDormand. I mean, these people did not campaign at all, yet they still voted for the person that they wanted to win. That the fact that Carey Mulligan had never won before didn't matter. They wanted to give to Frances McDormand because they like her a lot. So that was an interesting thing. That this year in particular, I think the campaigning element didn't help at all, which we sort of knew that going into it. But I still think that this year, but also if you look at past years, more and more of these narratives that we build aren't necessarily true. So that'll be something interesting to look at later down in the road. And then in terms of the BAFTAs, they got the big 8 categories right. And it seems that more and more, even with their weird acting decision in terms of the, how they nominate people, seem to be that they're pretty accurate. They got the big 8 categories right. They're more accurate, I think, than SAG, which is becoming increasingly sort of bigger and more disparate from the Academy. And, there's always a divide between the BAFTAs or the Guild, but it seems like the BAFTAs, at least this year, were very good at it. Every year you try to go, okay, I'm going to go with the BAFTA winner in Nomadland, but then, I went to Mank for the ASC winner, so the Guild winner. But then the Guild winner of Charlie Chicago 7 lost to the BAFTA winner for Sound of Metal for Best Editing. So you never know. It's always a divide each and every year, so it's hard to tell in that sense, and that's always a sort of flip of the coin. So I was disappointed that I did miss out on something like Best Editing and Best Adapted Screenplay. Those ones definitely hurt, but still I'm glad to see those ones because I like Sound of Metal, because I like The Father. So even though I didn't predict them, I was still glad that at the result that ultimately they did win. A couple surprises in terms of Mank getting both of those awards. Sound of Metal doing well. The Father still getting 2 awards. Of course, Chadwick losing was the biggest surprise of the night. Other ones include, Judas and the Black Messiah winning for Best Original Song, which is surprising. Maybe even something like Colette for Best, I guess it was Best Documentary Feature, which I don't think anybody had, although it is a very traditional documentary winner. I don't want to overshadow the fact that the award show was so poor, the fact that the winners weren't, because it actually was a great year for winners. I think Yu Jun-yun winning for Minari is absolutely terrific. I loved all the acting nominees personally, and someone like Daniel Kaluuya, I don't want to overshadow the fact that it was such a sort of lock for him to win tonight, but let's not cloud the fact that this is actually a historic win. That the Oscars rarely give it to an actor so young for such a terrific performance so early on in their career, and they got it right this time. I mean, this is like them giving the award to Denzel for Malcolm X. I really do believe that in a certain respect, that they're giving it to him at the right time. They're not waiting for him to get older and stuff like that. That actually this Daniel Kaluuya win is a very significant moment, and I can't wait for great things from him and Lakeith and all the great actors who were also Stephen Yeun nominated in that category. Or Stephen Yeun was in lead, and all the great actors that were nominated and young actors that I think they rewarded, particularly, of course, this year though with Daniel Kaluuya. So that, alongside probably Sound of Metal winning for Best Sound, are my favorite wins of the night, even though I didn't do too great overall. Still happy with my performance and how I did ultimately, but yeah, missing, it's coin flips, and I missed out on adapted screenplay, I missed out on cinematography, I missed out on editing, so those situations were tough to handle. But ultimately, let's hope next year has better circumstances so they can allow for a better sort of award show. But the structuring of it and how things rolled out was terrible, frankly, and just incredibly disappointing. And it's sad to see, because so many of the winners were so great, but the award show just didn't, in my opinion, hold up. But I think it will be a divisive kind of award show. We'll see how it turns out. But aside from that, next week I will be bringing back a fan favorite series, Forgotten Oscar Films, where each and every week I break down a movie that was nominated for Best Picture that I believe has been forgotten to time. A movie that people don't talk about as much, and you may have even forgotten it was nominated for Best Picture. I did a couple years ago, starting with the year 1988 and working my way backwards. Now I'm going to start from 2013 and work my way backwards to 1989 before we once again start another season season of the Oscar predictions. So I hope you guys stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. I hope you continue to watch these videos. You showed me incredible support over this Oscar season. But once again, this is not Oscar predictions, but still that Oscar channel where we talk about the different years. So I'm going to be talking about the history of 2013 and then go back to 2011 and 2010 and 2009 and keep on going back and back and back and talk about movies. The first one next week is going to be Philomena, which is a movie that I liked and I want to talk about in the history and sort of recollect and reflect on that and what it means in terms of it's not as popular as some other movies like maybe Her, for example, in that year, but it still has value, and I want to talk about its value and its importance in that year and sort of remind each other of why these movies are nominated for Best Picture in the first place and the value that they have. Ultimately, that's what I want to bring, and I thought I did that with the past Forgotten Oscar Films section, but once again, doing this now from the years of 2013 to 1989, ending with the Driving Miss Daisy year. So subscribe to the channel, stay tuned for that. I appreciate all the support you've been giving. Let me know your thoughts, your predictions, your percentage score, all that kind of stuff. Once again, I appreciate all the support you've given throughout this year in such a weird year. And stay tuned for next week and the next upcoming months where I give a different go through the 90s and Oscars in 2000s. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for this new season of Forgotten Oscar Films. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, stay tuned.